Hey, so welcome back to my channel. I am Jason, and this is from Sinn's Perspective Reviews. Okay, so this is going to be Insatiable, a recap of Insatiable episode, season 2, episode 2, Dead Girl. Okay, so we're on the heels of Roxy being killed at the pageant after being crowned Miss whatever. I can't remember the name of the damn pageant. And of course, those of us who's watching the show, and of course, Bob Armstrong is kind of giving Petty the side eye, like, girl, what you do? Didn't we? Aren't we still trying to clean up some mess? Like, what have you done now? Okay, so the police are there. So they're taking Roxy's body out, and the police are there. Obviously, was one of the officers. I don't remember his name. He's interviewing all of the contestants, and of course, they're giving their accounts of where they were. When somebody was chatting, and somebody was doing this, that, and the third, whatever. Basically, obviously, nobody's going to admit to actually being there. So, but then they sit down with Barnard and Magnolia. And Magnolia is having an issue with her short-term memory. Of course, Barnard, even though he didn't really know Roxy, he found out that was his daughter. That was his daughter, and so he's kind of dealing with that, and the fact that he don't know where his daughter Magnolia has been for the last couple of days. She's, and she's kind of out of it, so. He basically cut the interview short, like, I've already lost one daughter. I don't want to lose another one. She's like, basically, clearly she had a head injury. She had the bandage on her head. I need to get her to the hospital. So he had just basically ended the interview. Was like, I'm leaving. So after that, the cop sat down with Coralee, and she inadvertently, she didn't mean any harm by it, but they were asking her questions. She was basically like, they recently found out, Magnolia and Roxy recently found out they were sisters, and there was some tension between them, but she was like, but no more than if it had been me and I found out I had a sister I didn't know about. And so, of course, the cop kind of took that as Magnolia having a motive, and so she kind of inadvertently did that. Obviously, she did not, it wasn't intentional. Then the cops sit down with Patty and Armstrong, and he's asking the questions, and she is basically saying that I see that she didn't do it, that she was sick. And he was like, what do you mean? She was like, well, I was throwing up. He said, well, are you? No, she said that she was throwing up. He said, are you sick? And Armstrong basically told her the truth, like she has an eating disorder. For some reason, Patty, like most addicts, they don't want to admit they have a problem. So she got offended that he said that, like, I do not have an eating disorder. Like, look at where you are, girl. Open your eyes and see where you are. You're a suspect in yet another murder. So, there was a knock at the door, and it was another cop. And so the cop was the guy that Armstrong slept with in the gym. So now he's like, oh, hell. Like, so obviously it's like an awkward moment, and the other cop that was standing there said, oh, do you guys know each other? And they kind of brushed it off, said something, and they brushed it off. And basically the guy, I can't remember the cop's name. We're going to say Jim guy. He's taking over. He's the lead detective he's the detective, so he's the lead on the case. And so he proceeded to ask questions. Asking questions, and then this idiot cop comes in with a basket. It was like, oh, well, this basket was in Roxy's room, so my blood sugar's low. Can I have one? Of course, the detective is like, you can't evidence, you can't eat that. And so when Armstrong saw that, he was like, okay. He didn't want to ask her because, but when he saw the basket, he was like, okay, so that was his sign that she didn't actually do it. And so when he said that, she got offended, like, what do you mean? It's like, chick, you've murdered 2 people. So it's just the ridiculousness of the show. Like, you've murdered 2 people, and to be offended and indignant at the fact that somebody would question whether or not you murdered a third was just beyond me. Like, Patty is really, her character is really getting on my nerves. Like, seriously. And he basically said, well, no, because if you had murdered her, then basically she would have devoured that basket. That's basically what he was saying. But the fact that it was still there means that you didn't do it. Okay, because she's still in denial about her eating disorder. So they end up saying their goodbye, saying, whatever, good night to the cop. Like, she's tired, she has to go home. She's, either you're going to arrest her or you're going to let her go. So of course he let her go. So they start talking. And of course, Stella Rose came up again, like we don't know where she is, and he basically said that you need to go home, try to get some rest, and have somebody stay with you. And she's like, well, why? He was like, because we don't know what Stella where she is. All we know is she could have killed Roxy, and she's lying in wait. And of course, he's so dramatic. Uh, what's his name? Michael Myers. And oh no, she's like Jason, and she was like who's Jason? So he explained to her it's a guy that wears a mask and has a machete, and he won't stay dead. And she's like, that's Stella Rose, like she's hard to kill, and she won't stay dead. So he's like making his little comments, and so now she's scared. So he sent her home, and he has to go back to get rid of Christian's car. So he goes to get rid of Christian's car, and there are some people in the car having sex. We don't know who it is, but he has to wait for whatever their little situation to end so he can get the car. So next thing you know, you see him. He actually has this Christian's car hooked to his little sedan or whatever, and he's like trying to pull this car to the junkyard, but he makes it. And the guy, he knew the guy that owned the place, and he paid him a couple of dollars. And he said, "Yeah, you owe me a favor, just like I did for you on your 3 divorces." So he agreed that he would take the car and crush the car, or whatever, get rid of it. Okay, so as far as they know, the car that's done. And of course, we already know in the last episode, Christian's body was devoured by these pigs that just happened to be on this isolated road, and they just came out of nowhere. Christian's body. Okay, but it's that kind of show, it's that kind of town, and we deal with these kind of people. Okay, whatever. So we go flash to Patty and Nonnie. So Patty is having nightmares. She's now having nightmares of Stella Rose wearing this hockey mask, like she's just popping up all over the place. So she wakes up and she sees Nonnie there, and then it was like, oh, it's just she was just like, well, who else would it be? And so they start talking, and she mentioned that the whole eating disorder comment thing came up, and Nonnie had to be honest with her. Patty said, "Do you want to get something to eat?" She was like, "No, it's the middle of the night. No, I don't want to eat anything." And so then the conversation about the eating disorder came up, and Nonnie had to tell her, that you do have a problem. And she was like, "Well, how do I have a problem and you don't? Because you would stay up, and you would have these binge sessions with me as well. So basically, how do I have an eating disorder and you don't?" And she was like, "Well, basically, you would initiate these nighttime raids on the refrigerator, and I would just go along, but." Basically saying that you were always the one with the issue. And of course, she got upset and indignant, and she didn't want to talk about it anymore. So they lay back down, and how she thought Nonnie was asleep that quick, I have no idea, but she calls herself sneaking out of bed, and she goes to the kitchen to eat, basically. So Nonnie is laying in there with her eyes open like, girl, okay. So now we have Vagina. She's in prison. She's visiting Shelby. Shelby was her cellmate when she was locked up last season for child molestation, when she was having sex with Brick, who was Bob Armstrong's and Coralee's teenage son. So Shelby was her cellmate. So she's still in contact with Shelby, and she was like, "Did you get that package I sent you?" And so she sent her some of the tampazels, which is the idea that Coralee and her came up with, and she's saying Coralee stole the idea, the whole thing. And so she said, "Well, I'm going to call them tampoozles." Again, this is the kind of town, this is the kind of people we're dealing with. Okay. So she sent her a package of tampoozles to the prison, and Shelby was telling her like she's been getting getting a ton of money from pen pals and all of this, so she's able to invest in it. So of course Shelby's like, okay, she's gonna move forward with that. Patty, that night, okay, so when the previous night when her and Nonnie got into it, she actually got a text from the regional, the pageant committee, and they wanted to meet with her. And so she, is excited because because she was the runner-up, because Roxy is now dead, then the crown would naturally pass to her. So she went in, and of course she's seeing Stella wearing a hockey mask everywhere she turns, so she's just freaked out. And so Bob eventually shows up wearing the same clothes, looking filthy, looking like he's have all kinds of odors surrounding him, because he was up all night, making sure dealing with the car thing. So he just went from there straight to the to the meeting. And so she's like, "Oh my gosh, you look like a homeless what she say, a homeless man with a gambling problem or something." So they go in the car, and she takes his caboodle, and she starts doing his makeup, and so she takes the comb to comb his hair, and his little piece lifted up. So now she realized that he has a toupee. And he was like, so they're sitting around the table, her and the rest of the pageant contestants with their parents and, coaches or whoever, waiting for a decision to be made. And he was basically like, we are never going to talk about that ever again. And so the decision came down that because of the death, that they wouldn't be awarding the crown to Patty, and basically they're going to scratch the entire pageant for that year. And they may, they'll start over next year. But of course, Bob and Patty can't let that happen. So they put on this, they give this rousing speech on how important this pageant is to the girls, and, how they've worked so hard, and how, he knows that it's about PR, because pageants have been getting a lot of bad publicity, and so we need to do something to change the idea of pageants in the public's mind. And so canceling the pageant isn't the best thing to do. And so they come up with a memorial service. So they're going to have a memorial service for Roxy. Okay, so of course, Patty again, like, I couldn't stand her. I can't believe you suggested we have a memorial service. And he's like, look, the goal is for you to be as involved as possible, because we need people to disassociate you from her crime. Like, she's like, it's not sinking in. Patty is just, like I said, Patty really is getting on my nerves. Okay. For her to be this one of the stars of the show, that character, I think she is the character that I like the least, because she just really gets on my nerves. Okay. So they've decided to move forward with the memorial service and see what they come up with. Okay, so Brick is he's at home, he's working out, and his mom walks in, and she sits down to talk to him, and she tells him that her and Bob are getting a divorce. So of course he was naturally, he's like taken aback, but then he was like, when she said, well, and I don't want you to think that has anything to do with you. And he's like, I know it doesn't. I think, you guys screwed this all up on your own. And so she kind of sat there, and then he got a text from Patty, and he was just like, I need to go. So she was like, we're not finished talking. Basically, he was like, I'm done. It had nothing to do with me. Y'all messed it up. You gotta fix it. I'm not getting involved in it. Whatever. Anywho, so he makes it over to Patty's house, where she has the other contestants, because they're supposed to be working together to show this false sisterhood to the public, to say that it really is about sisterhood and bonding and, all these positive things. But they fussing and fighting or whatever. So she called Brick, because Brick is basically, I guess, the captain of every sports team at the school. And so she's her ideas. So he knows about teamwork. So she was going to call him in to get some advice for how she can get them all together on the same page so they can pull this off. So he starts talking about having a team building exercise. So they're all on board. So of course, Heather, something other. Okay, so for some reason the recording stopped. Okay, so she called Brick, and he decided to do the team building exercise. So of course they saw Brick, and they was like, oh, they started swooning or whatever. And so Patty was starting to get a little jealous. So she told him to go ahead on, and she planted a big kiss on Brick. So of course he was happy. And so his idea of the team building exercise was them walking across this this rope without falling into the mud. So of course, the first two girls barely made it; they fell over, and then Heather, who was she is Roxy 2.0. She's like, she was a bitch. She got like 17 names. Heather Johnson Jackson, something other. And she basically said, the hell with this, I'm not doing this, and I don't know how we got talked into doing this stupid mess, and blah, 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 blah. And so, of course, her and Patty and eventually get into it. So they start slapping each other, going back and forth. Armstrong shows up, he breaks them up, and he explains to Brick, like, team building exercises are different when you're talking about pageant girls versus a sports team, and you're talking about girls versus boys. And so, of course, Brick, he had an attitude. He said something. He's like, "What do you mean? Mom told me about the divorce." Of course, he's upset. He's like, "Well, we agreed. We agreed to discuss that with you together. She should have never said anything." So, Brick said what he had to say, and he walked off. So, Patty and Armstrong were trying to figure out, okay, what are they going to do? So they decide that they all hated Roxy for one reason or another, that she slept with their boyfriends or something. So they decided that their disdain for Roxy would be what they bonded over. And so they decided to do a musical for the memorial. And the song was, I ended up fast forwarding past that because it just sounded crazy, and it wasn't a huge turnout, but the whole point was for the song to go viral, to create some positive publicity for the pageant. So, okay. But what Bob realized later on is that he was so wrapped up in trying to get Patty this crown that he forgot that Roxy was Bob Barnard's daughter. But obviously it was too late, so they get up there and they start singing a song about her dying and all this other craziness. So of course, Barnard, he's now emotional. And Armstrong walks up and says, "Is there anything that I could do?" And Coralee, she puts her arm around Barnard and was like, "You've done enough." So they walk off. So they walk off, and who shows up while they're standing outside? The gremlin, Dixie, Vagina's daughter. So she ends up walking over to the pageant, and what do you know? The Wienermobile comes through and runs her behind over. So now it's like, okay, so now is Dixie dead? So are they gonna have another dead person? So it's like so many things that happened. In this town in just the first two episodes. So it's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, a lot of dialogue. It's a lot. And these are just the first two episodes, and I think it's like maybe 10 to 12 episodes this season. So it's going to be a lot. But again, they don't disappoint. It's just craziness on top of craziness, on top of lunacy, on top of depravity, on top of some more crazy. So, yes, I'm going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode.